All right, let's talk about the seasons because we are coming up to January 1st, and everybody knows that as the time for New Year's resolution. However, January 1st is right in the start of wintertime. And so wintertime is it's a season within the cycle of the year. And all of the seasons within the year are coordinated with the seasons of life. And so if we look at the seasons of life, we've got birth, we've got adolescence, and adulthood, and then we've got like the older years, and then we've got death. And those are the seasons of life. And the seasons of the year are spring, summer, fall, winter. And so if we line those up, what do we have? We've got spring is birth, summer is late adolescence, adulthood, it's like the vigorousness of life. Then we've got fall, which is the older years of life, and then we've got winter, which is death. And death is a healthy part of all life cycles. So if you look out into nature, without death, there would not be a way to facilitate life. And so the middle of winter time is a time of void, of detachment, of letting go, of surrender. And so when January 1st comes along, we've got all these ideas for New Year's resolutions. What we're really looking to do is create space. That's what I should say we're in tuned to do. We're in tune to create space. So before we make a resolution and determine to get into action, make sure that you make space for that. Be clear on what you're letting go of, what you're clearing out, so that you can build from that space. Just wanted to put that out there. All right, so we are here. Hi, everybody. Let me know what's going on in your world. Let me know what you're letting go of, actually, would be an amazing start, because that's a question that we rarely ask ourselves, right? What are we letting go of? How are we making space within our life? Because without that, there's nowhere to create, right? You can't take a full bucket and pour more water in it. You have to take some of the water out so that more water can fit in. It's the same thing with our creations. I'm letting go of smoking. Amazing, Andrew Chandler. How are you doing that? What's the activity? Can we commit? People pleasing. People pleasing is, we talked about that yesterday with Gary, actually. Some people are people pleaser and some people receive the pleasings and they match together, and then there's a dynamic where you both serve each other. Letting go of matter and particle form. Interesting. Definitely think that a lot of us can go there and challenge our concepts of what reality is, what matter is. Is there things beyond matter that may be the origin of matter? My personal opinion is go there, but also don't ignore this physical experience. Surrendering, finally finding a home. Amazing. Because if you're focused on wanting and lacking and not having a home, then that's what you will continue receiving. So surrender to finding the home and be the home, right? Be at home. That's going to make space for that perfect home to match that feeling. That's an interesting tangent that I think we should go on. How to manifest. I want to let go of wishing to be healed. Oh, this is the same sort of concept. I want to let go of wishing to be healed. Instead, I want to make space to feel secure in this body. So, same sort of angle there, right? instead of focusing on needing to be healed, can we align ourselves with the security of being us? And it's a shift in mindset, but it allows you to recognize and focus on the opportunities to be full, to have a full spectrum life experience. Somebody said fasting, so they're letting go of eating. What's happening, Ra? It's hard, but letting go of how I plan this year to go, using the energy to plan the new year with excitement. Yeah. I think a lot of people plan this year to go a certain way and it did not end up as expected. And so our work there as humans, as creators, is to figure out how it is perfect. Because if it wasn't perfect, it wouldn't have happened. So we have this expectation in our limited perspective, right? This human form is limited. We know this because linear time is something that we perceive, but it's a limited perspective of what actually is. All of time and space is existing now. However, we have limited capacities to witness that. And so if we, in our limitness, is that a word? In our limited capacities, feel or witness that the world or our reality didn't end up as it should have, as it could have, as we expected, then it's our work to figure out, to use that as an equation. Okay, how did I intend on this to happen? How is this perfect for me? How does this serve me? And within that practice, we can discover more about ourselves. We can reverse engineer a lot of things, right? So let's say you got into an accident this year. Probably not expected, probably not what you desired. This you, okay? But there's a certain other part of you that did desire that, did intend on that. And so where's that gap at? Where's that gap in your perception? And can you fill it? How was that accident something that you did intend? A lot of times we want out of our jobs, we want out of our relationships, we want out of our current life, and opportunities come to us to get out of them, but we don't take them because we're just sitting on our phone scrolling, or we're just going through the motions. And so something like an accident helps us on purpose to realign ourselves to our original intention that maybe we made 10 years ago, right? So it's figuring out, if it didn't go as I thought I expected it to go, how did I actually intend this? And doing that is essentially assuming responsibility for your life. All right, so how can I add as monitor? Thank you, Lisa. Okay, we're still on what are we letting go of, okay? It's winter time. This is a time of, look, most of the trees out there still have their leaves, but if you guys are in the northern hemisphere, more northern than I am, this is a time when the trees let the leaves fall down, and leaves are actually it's where a lot of I want to say 90%, but I can't remember. The leaves have the most nutrients within the tree. So when the tree lets those nutrients go down, they go into the earth and then they refeed the tree. There's a lot of cool metaphors when you look into nature of just like how that can act within your life. So right now we're talking about letting go of things to make space in their life. So what are we letting go of? What are we letting go of? Everyone's staying on their phone, which is good because we're here now on the phone. Letting go of fear and grief. So one other thing that I've learned after studying psychology forever and, well, my entire adult life and working with people is that the next step, which is what we're going to go into, once we've identified what we're letting go, then that gives us, that's the prerequisite essentially to give us the space to create. And just trying to let go of something, so they work hand in hand. Just trying to let go of something doesn't work unless you fill in something else so that that void is filled in, because otherwise we're going to still crave what we let go of. And then also, to create something, you cannot create something without letting go, because there won't be any space. So now that we've specified what we're letting go, somebody wants me to lead Totally Twisted again today, which I'll do. I've got 2 hours with everybody right now. So I will lead Totally Twisted in my way, in my exercise science gym owner type way. But now we need to focus on creation. So once we let go of fear and pain, somebody said, what are we going to fill that in with? Letting go of a toxic relationship. Okay, so we let go of the toxic relationship. We are clear on that. Now, in order to complete that cycle, we need to be clear on what is to be. Letting go of fear of control. I'm filling the space with my native culture and language and healing. Amazing. Feeling those emotions without judgment allows our body to be safe space. Emotions are who we are too. It is. Fear of being cheated on. Love your hair. Gracias. I have been scammed. I'm not ready to let go. Speaking of scam, there's constantly people making fake accounts of other people, and one is currently happening for me. So if anybody, especially recently new followers of raw_of_earth, there's fakes out there that are asking people to pay for psychic readings. That's not me. It's a scammer. If they have like 18 posts, then it's definitely not my actual account. All right, so anger against family. Yes. So for instance, if you let go of that, you are no longer angry at your family, which is going to set an example for your family to not have to be on guard when you're around, because you're not making those one-off comments to them and they're feeling like not making those comments to you, and it allows for something else. And what is that something else? Well, it's up to you to create. Filling space with enthusiasm. I actually like this. This is supposed to be Ask Me Anything, and I'm asking you guys the questions, and now I'm just reading your answers, which is how circles, how communities are supposed to work, right? This teacher, student, parent, child, guru, disciple relationship is kind of being flipped around, because we're recognizing that the power is in the community and not so much in the one person. So it's going from a top-down dissemination of knowledge into a full circle. That's why that's why the Human Garage community is so powerful, because you got many, many people adding to the collective wisdom. Filling the space with enthusiasm and joy. Clutter, but I don't want to fill it back in with anything. Don't want to fill it back in with anything. You will. I don't want. So, want, the etymology of want is to lack. So when you say I don't want, that means I don't lack. I don't lack filling it in with anything. I don't lack filling it in with anything. Don't lack, which really means that's like a double negative, which means that you will fill it in with something. Just becoming a safe container for the human experience. Create self-love in order to love others. Reconnecting with myself and nature. If you do have questions, guys, there's a question little circle thing in the bottom of your screens. Ask a question there. I think that let's go over Totally Twisted, since that's the question. The next question. Isn't the goal to let go of everything, letting go of all attachments, because attachments bring suffering in the end? So, yes, that's a phase. We can go through the phase of letting go of everything. But that's still a matrix. That's still a phase. We're in the phase of letting go of everything and being okay with everything. Yes, we can commit our entire life to that, but ask yourself the question, are you here to commit your life to just going with the flow? And if so, then commit to that. Shave off your hair, let go of all personal belongings, go be a monk in the forest, have other people feed you, like go through that whole thing. Maybe you end up sitting on a mountaintop and people make pilgrimages to you to hear what you have learned from being in this matrix. Or go through the phase, learn what you learn by releasing a reasonable amount so that you're still human within this world, maybe being a productive member of society or not. You could be an artist, you can emphasize your creativeness, your ability to imagine, your ability to explore within this realm, and you can come out of that and you can integrate what you've learned into everything else. But being attached to an identity is just a matrix that we set, that we jail ourselves in if we're making hard and fast rules of isn't the goal to let go of everything. They're really, the goal is progression. The goal is integration of the lessons that you've learned. The goal is whatever direction you desire to go in, go there one step at a time. And so when we hear somebody else say something, including me, it's up to all of us to determine how much of that we're going to take into our life, integrate it, learn what we need to learn, and then continue moving forward. Fasting. How is pooping during fasting, and what do you eat getting out of fasting? How is pooping during fasting? I mean, eventually it stops if you're just water fasting or dry fasting. And there's many different things that you can do in terms of coming out of it, and it's going to determine based on the type of fast. So definitely do some research on the type of fast that you're doing. And coming out, I don't really want to give instructions because that's one of the most important parts of the fast. And so you should go in with a plan. So what I'll say is have a plan for coming out. Because if you don't have a plan for coming out, you might just end up at a party with a bunch of junk food, and then you just start consuming that, and you're going to consume probably 10 times the amount of what you should have been consuming for your first meal. So have a plan that is well thought out and done by others in front of you, or done by others before you, and stick to the plan. Any tips on sitting in those times where your healing journey takes a step back? Is this just a reset period, a time to push through? Guys, no matter what, when you're transcending paradigms, there's going to be pushback. There's always going to be pushback. Why? Because you're attached through many different levels, like sometimes literally physically, you're attached. So an example of that would be like going to the job that you hate. You're physically in action attached to it. And other times it's just like mental thoughts of attachment. Like you have this idea of self. Like you have this idea that you deserve, you recognize yourself in a 1-bedroom apartment sharing a bedroom, right? Like that's your conception of self. And emotionally as well, you might be emotionally attached to being a certain way. You might be emotionally attached to being angry. And that just might be where you find yourself. And there's all of these attachments that we have within our current reality. So this person's asking, I'll just pin the comment. It's evolved me. Asking like, and I might be reading this wrong, but the way that I'm taking is what happens when you're progressing and then you take a step back. Like, what is that? And I'm just saying that anytime you're transcending your paradigm of reality, there is going to be almost like a vacuum effect that's going to pull you back into place, because you might be switching out physically. Like let's say in my examples, you quit your job, but you still have this mental programming of I share 1-bedroom apartment and I'm attached to anger. So you quit your job and you get, like, let's say you get provided an opportunity where you get paid 3 times the amount of money, right? But you still have these other attachments that weren't addressed, okay? And that will lead you to maybe getting angry in a meeting and getting fired. And now you get to keep your anger and you get to keep your identity of having to share a 1-bedroom apartment, right? So there's a lot of different parts of us that do not automatically detach because one aspect of us has moved on. So we get to make sure that we're looking at all of the different, like let's say they're tentacles of ourself. But we're looking at all of the different tentacles. If one of them changes, there's a whole bunch of other tentacles that are saying, no, don't leave me, don't break up with me. I am comfortable here. I know what it's like to be an angry person. If you put me in this, let's say, triple salaried position where I need to be responsible and I need to have emotional intelligence and be able to speak to others in a way that they feel received and not just pushed apart. If I need to empower others, I don't know how to be like that. I would rather just be an angry person. I would rather only have to pay this much rent and only have to worry about these bills. And so there's all these aspects of us that pull us back in our journeys. And we get to untangle that all. And it may not be simple, it may not be easy, but that's what we get to do. And as we do that, we evolve ourselves. And then we fit into another reality much easier because we've been able to untangle where we need to untangle. And we release being an angry person. We release the identity and the comfort of living that college life. And it's so comfortable just, not having bills to pay, not having to worry about things because you have roommates. Like all of this is easy and comfortable, but as we release it, we get to ascend. We go forward and probably 2 step backwards in this healing journey. We need to revisit the lesson. Exactly. It's all just like revisiting the lessons is another thing. So if we keep on going through the same types of experiences, it's because we're still attached to them. We haven't learned the lesson, because if we would have flowed through that learning opportunity because we knew the answer. Oh, I'm not going to fall into this pattern because I know where this pattern leads me to. And we go through and we ascend. Let's look at these. Why do family members see your anger at a distance, and until the anger is released, they won't help you? Why do family members do that? I'll give you my perspective on that. Sometimes the people around us who know us best can see through your bullshit. And you might think that you're telling, that you're open to receiving them, but you still have a lot of guards and you're still running this story and basically playing an act. Playing this act that you have, that you have your shit together and you don't need them, and you're still competing. You're still out there competing like a high schooler does, in 10th grade. And we still kind of are running these programs, and the people that know us best can see through all of that and can just see that they've got their issues to deal with, and that's on them. And they know this because they've been there before as well. And they look at you and they say, she's got to figure this out on her own. And they let you do that. And you're still there running your show, running your act, and at the same time thinking, why don't they get me? Quit running your act. Be real. Get through what you need to get through. And they will be more open if you're vulnerable and authentic about what you're going through. And it's the competition where you're trying to be somebody that you're not, to be on their level or be better than them, that makes people say, like, whatever, you handle your stuff, and when you're done with that, then we can jive, then we can communicate. So that's my answer to that. It might not be your situation, but that's what I personally see, why people sort of just push away other people who are closest to them. Because they're just like, this person can fool everybody else in their life, but they're not going to fool me. All right, there's a lot of comments and questions. It's me not being approachable. Exactly. How long will you be live? I'm going to be live for 90 more minutes. Also, your voice is changing from your normal voice to the heavy voice. People keep saying that, and I actually feel it. But when you talk for long periods of time, talking's like, imagine holding a plank for 2 hours. During that plank, it's going to change positions, right? And your voice does the same thing. There's muscles in here and all sorts of movement that changes the nature of the voice. And even if you guys get into chanting, your voice you can originate your voice from different places. So right now, I'm down in my gut. This is what gut voice sounds like. Everybody stand up. Sit down. So that's gut voice. That's coaching voice. And then you can talk from your heart. And that's what this voice sounds like. Come over here. Right? So that's what this voice, and then you can be up in your head, and I'm even looking up as I do this, and I'm trying to remember the square root of, trying to think of a number that is a square root. The square root of 9 is 3, right? So that's up here. I can even feel my voice coming out of my nose. So that's another reason why our voice changed, and we have control of that. All right, back to the comments. So, thinking about the voice, yes, it's frequency. On Instagram, they're distorting your voices on Instagram Lives. Maybe you can do that. Okay. Do I offer sessions? No, but later today I'm releasing a community as well. So All right, somebody was asking about the totally twisted. So let's do that right now. So definitely the Human Garage team has done an amazing job. So I like to actually, how can I do this? All right, can you guys see me here? So let's do the full totally twisted, all right? That means all of the rounds. So first thing I do is I pay attention to my feet. So even before I I cross the right over the left, I'm going to fix my hips over my feet. And so if my hips are fixed over my feet, that means that if you imagine your hips as a bucket, that it's not pouring out any side. All right, so make sure that everything is in alignment. And then as you cross your right foot over your left, you want to keep that bucket in alignment. And then I go into my feet. So in our feet, so a lot of people, if you go to yoga class, they talk about the feet as 4 points. The two corners of the heel and the two corners of the balls of the feet. I think about the feet as 3 points. So I've got the heel bone, which is going into the earth, and then I've got the joint where the big toe comes into the ball of the foot. All right, so I press that point down and I connect it with the heel. Now the third point you would think is the pinky side ball of the foot, but it's not. The third point is the right here. So the middle of that knife edge of our foot. So I think about those 3 points: heel, big toe, rooted, and then the middle line of the, it's right here. This is the foot right here, but in hand form. So you got heel, this big toe point right here, and then the middle right here of the foot. So I push those in. What that's going to do, it's going to lift my arch up. So we've got the arch right here, and then we also have an arch in between the middle, what are these things called? The balls of the feet right here. I'm taking a long time here, but I do all this. Then as Gary, Jason, the team will say, they do the pelvic lock. However, from here I make sure that the tailbone is going down. So we've got energy going down here, and we've got energy coming up here. So it's more of an energetic thing. And the reason why we pull this in is so that when we breathe, all of this spreads out. All of this becomes, so even just in this position, this is a maneuver in itself, just standing here. So just standing here, I can start feeling myself move around. Then I take my right hand, put it under my left, and I actually reach pretty far, my left hand over my right, and then once again, I pull up with my navel. So the navel is 2 inches below the belly button. I pull up there, and I make sure that the energy in my tailbone is going down, and feet coming up. So from those 3 points, coming up into the calves. And then we want to be thinking about pressing down from our pelvis down into the floor as the energy comes up the quads. So it's coming up the front. I'm trying to say it as I'm doing it. So the quads are activating, we're pressing down into the earth without locking the knees. So it's almost like if this is the leg coming out of the hip, all sides of the leg need to be active. And that's basically, it's not squeezing like a muscle flex. I'm finding all of the fascia within my entire leg. So Gary talks about the spirals of fascia and that how it's going from bone out to skin and then hair. I'm finding all of that and I'm lighting it up. So it's not exactly a flex of muscle. It's an activation. It's an energetic activation. It actually feels like shimmers of electricity going down my legs. Then from here, of course, head goes to the left, body goes to the right, and then also this left hip either stays secure or energetically, I'm also making it go in the same direction of my head. And we're just going to, we're going to do half. So tongue goes in the left cheek, and then we do inhale through the nose, exhale, do that again as we're still twisting, and we're putting energy into the legs. And then we take that same energy, we go up our torso. So now do the lips pursed, and then inhale, 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 exhale, and twist as you exhale. We're just gonna do that one more time, lips pursed. Exhale, come back to center. Once again, we're pressing down with our legs. Now, the other thing I didn't talk about is do the same thing from the torso up. So from this flat bowl, that's the foundation. So we want to be thinking our legs just created ground, it created a foundation in our pelvis for torso up. So we've got a solid foundation here. Now do the same thing. Find all the fascia in the whole part of our body and light that up. So it's not a flex. It's almost like it's a potential to move in any direction. Because when you flex something, it's about holding it still. But if I create more of like, if you think about like a martial artist, they're active. They're ready to move in any position, any rotation. They can rotate any joint, and it's tough, but it's not just flexed, holding still. So we want to be creating that in our entire body as we go to the other side. So the head goes to the right, torso goes to the left. Pin that right hip back as well, and then create your foundation in your legs and your torso. Go through your breathing in your nose with your tongue in your cheek. 3 times, right? Inhale, exhale. Top of the head is lifting because your neck is doing that active, that fascial activation. Lips, inhale, 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 exhale. Do that 2 more times. Exhale. Exhale. Come back to center. All right, just for the sake of balance, we're going to do the other side very quickly. But for me, what I do is I just focus on that activation. So it's not about flexing the muscles. It's about finding the fascia in your body and lighting them up. It's like turning them on so that they're charged and the potential's there. And so if you are playing sports, you have this constant awareness of all the aspects of your body. And this also has intelligence, right? That the fascia has intelligence, so that if you are being pushed around, it's reactive. It can respond. I should say responsive. It's responsive so that it knows when to apply the pressure and when to be soft. Okay, I said we're going to do the other side, right? So we're doing a abbreviated version of this. Left hand goes under, left foot goes over, under. Find those points of the feet, find the legs, find the pelvis, create the platform, find the upper body. Left hand goes under, right hand over. Find the position, find the head, find the neck, all in alignment. And then you just rotate. Head goes to the left, Body goes to the right. Tongue in the cheek. Find the tight line in your cheek. Inhale through the nose. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Push your lips out. Inhale through the mouth. Inhale. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more times. Come back to center. And I know I'm skipping that last part. That last part is actually the most open, and I'm not getting to like how I start opening. But once I'm normally doing this, we spent a lot of time on the other one. So just come back to center. When I go onto that third where I'm locking my eyes on something and breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth, that's where I'm actually opening up more. That third set of 6 is where I can actually get most of the work done. And all of this twisting and we're compacting ourselves. When we breathe, we want to be breathing into the parts of us that normally don't get breathed into. So last side, head to the right, torso to the left. Find your stability in your feet, your legs, your pelvis. Tongue in the cheek of your mouth. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Twist even further. Being careful. Find the stability in your legs. That might even mean internally rotating at your hips to press down into your feet more. Press up. Lips. Inhale. 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 Exhale. Inhale as much air as possible. More. More. Exhale. Last one. Lips. Inhale. 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 Exhale. So, I should have warned everybody to not overdo it. And the way that you do that is that activation holds you in position. So the point isn't to twist as much as possible, because then you're just yanking against your bones, your ligaments and tendons, and those aren't as strong as your muscles or your fascia. Those actually have some vulnerability. So we want to make sure that we're activating so that when we twist, we're not twisting into the vulnerable ligaments, but we're twisting into the structure of the fascia, and we're opening that up so that all of the muscle, the ligaments and tendons have more space within the fascia, the structure of the body. This is just my version as well. If you guys are new, if you've never experienced this, definitely go to the Human Garage site and go through their programs. I think that if you look on their schedule that they posted, Lisa, where did you post that? Where it talks about January 1st is the 1 day, and then the 3 day, the 7 day, and there's a whole bunch of programs being that they're going to go through as a community the beginning of the year. All right. What practices do you recommend to help release shame and guilt from the body? So the maneuvers allow us to get into the body and the organs. However, if you guys imagine throwing a pebble in like an ocean, right, with like tons of waves and lots of stuff happening in the ocean, you throw a pebble in there, the pebble is going to just basically go right through the water. You're not going to see anything because there's so many waves and turmoil that's happening in the water. versus if you drop a pebble into a calm lake or a calm pond. You're going to drop that in and you're going to see the ripples. So within our life, if we wish to be aware of things, whether it's how do I get these feelings out of my body, how do I reprogram myself, it really takes finding moments of stillness so that we can observe ourselves and untangle the components of our life that may be causing us to feel a certain way. And also, I mentioned programs a lot. Programs are a real thing, okay? Our body is very efficient. And when we're like 2 years old to like 7 or 8 years old, our brain is in theta frequency, which is what we as adults can get to theta in a state of meditation. Okay, so if you imagine the moments right before sleep, or if you've, done like if you've exhausted your body or done some practices and then you're now meditating or chanting or even savasanaing, and there's this moment of stillness and clarity, these are the times where you're in theta. In theta, that's when all of our programming got set. So we learned to behave the way that we behave between like 2 years old to 7 and 8 years old. Our body's efficient. It's learning about its environment during that time. And then it takes that program and it runs it the whole rest of your life. And our body, in its efficiency, is not going to let us reprogram just because we have a thought to reprogram ourselves. Because evolutionarily speaking, which I don't necessarily always take the case of evolution, but evolutionarily speaking, it wouldn't make sense for us to just be able to change our, like, let's say we do or don't have a fear of heights. Like, just flipping the switch on that because we feel like doing that, it's not going to serve keeping us alive and keeping us as a stable human. So the environment we grew up in is the environment that we are designed to be in as an adult. And if we do wish to change it, we have to go back to theta brainwave frequency. That's the frequency that we can start overriding our programs, which means breathwork, meditation, awareness of present moment. But getting all of those waves in the original, like if we're still thinking about the bills we have to pay, the fact that we hate our best friend for what they did to us last night, we're dealing with the text messages from our landlord, like all of these things are preventing us from noticing, number one, the signs, the opportunities that come to us, but also noticing the signals from our body. And so get down into calmness, into stillness, and we can start recalibrating how we are. And that's essentially going into our subconscious, which I didn't even mention. So our consciousness, it's been like 10 years since I've talked about this, so let's see if I can get the numbers right. Maybe 5 years. Somewhere between 5 and 10 years. Okay. All right, how powerful is our subconscious? Or how powerful is our subconscious compared to our consciousness? Our ability, our conscious capabilities is about 128 bits of information. So 128, did I say 128? I meant somewhere around like 120. But 128 sounds good. But 120 bits of information. So a conversation is 60, like the power of a conversation requires 60 bits. All right. So having two conversations at once is about the max that we can have in our life. So if you imagine right now listening to me and then also talking to somebody else and being able to have a conversation with them and be able to listen to what I'm saying. And then imagine being able to comment on what I'm saying. So you're having a conversation with me and with somebody else. That's about the max that our consciousness can take. Our subconscious, all right, so I'm standing right now. If I'm having two conversations, I'm not consciously focusing on how to stand. If I were to have to do this while having a conversation with somebody else and having a conversation with person B and focus on everything else, it would take a lot of practice to be able to do that, to be able to bring our conscious capabilities to that. That would be maxing out our conscious capabilities, which isn't a lot, because right now I'm standing, but I'm not thinking about it. Why? Because my subconscious is handling that. So our subconscious abilities are, this is where I'm starting to get the numbers right, but I'm just going to say it. Millions of times strong, I'll say hundreds of thousands of times stronger than what our consciousness can do. Because we're also focusing, our eyes are working to focus an entire image. It would take lots of computers to render what my eyes are processing instantaneously as I'm just turning around the room, as I'm looking from person A to person B while having a conversation. Our subconscious is way, 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 way more powerful than our consciousness. Our consciousness is very, very weak compared to our subconscious. Subconscious is pumping the blood through our body. It's doing a lot of things. One could even say that there's something else outside of us that is guiding all of this. And so when we do get into theta, we get access to our subconscious programming, which can then set so many, it's like that's the foundation of our consciousness, and that's where we can make very impactful changes in our life. So if you're trying to do it in your consciousness and you're trying to say, I don't want to act like this anymore, it's going to lead to struggle because your consciousness can't do much. It's really just responsible for just carrying us around this earth, making decisions. But our subconscious, what's actually powering those decisions? Our subconscious is powering everything. So if we want to make changes in our life, we really need to go down to the origin of it all, which, as I said, may be within us, or it may be, an antenna into something else. And that's where you get all of these stories of people going into other dimensions through meditation. Somebody said, I wouldn't say it's weak, it's the focused part of our consciousness. How can I say that? Yes, it is what is focused. However, there's something else cataloging every single thing that is happening to us, and that's our subconscious. So if you guys imagine walking through a room, let's say it's a party. You imagine walking through a party and there's sounds all around you. But what are you focused on? Your consciousness is focused on getting through the crowd. And then all of a sudden you hear your name. You turn and look, right? We've all had this experience. Why is that? So there's something else besides your consciousness. That's your underneath your consciousness, subconscious or unconsciousness, that's actually listening to every single sound around you in order to then determine, oh, that was my name. Let's bring that up into the conscious awareness so that I, the person, the vehicle that I'm within, that I'm getting channeled into, can be aware that their name was just said. It's crazy when you actually think of how powerful we are. This is, because we have access to literally everything. So right now, if I told you to remember back to your elementary school, you would have very little details to tell me. Very little. You just think that was so long ago, I couldn't really. But if I gave you a yearbook that had all of the pictures of all of the people, it had a picture of the bathroom, the restroom, it had a picture of the lockers, all of a sudden, from somewhere in your body, all of these memories would come flooding in, because there's within you every single moment that you've ever experienced in your life. It just needs to be brought up with a trigger in some ways. And so knowing this and allowing yourself to manipulate it, to critique it, is it's crazy. And it gives you permission, because we don't just have access to all of that within us. What if we also have access to other lifetimes, other versions of reality that might not be existing currently in this time and space? There's the Akashic records, the Akash. It's like the library of everything. So we need both. So I'm structuring it as they're different things, but they're essentially the same, the different aspects of the same thing, which is us. The question is, what are we, right? Are we this meat suit, this body? Is that this brain? Is that me? Our concept of self is evolution, right? So if we evolve self, we evolve. And so we go from just being like, I'm this self that I need to take care of physically by doing this stuff, to then being able to sense others around us, be able to sense the future, being able to sense the past, because the future and past are illusions, because they're happening now. So am I able to generate a chord and hold on to it and have perception, sensation of the future and past? We get that if we get awareness of self, because it is through this self that we have access to those realms. Can we clear triggers from our subconscious? The Human Garage, they're saying that triggers, they translate that to clues. So just know that if you are being triggered, you are being clued in to a part of you that you're carrying with you, that you get to determine whether you want to keep on carrying it or not. And the actual situation that you're in now, where you're being triggered, is the decision point. Like, this is you making a decision. If you let yourself react in the same way that you always do, that you're telling yourself now, if you're making a decision, I do not like this, I desire to be something else, the decision is being something else. If you are not going to fill in that with some other way of being, then you continue the same way, and you call it being triggered, and you blame it on somebody else, because like, somebody else switched my trigger, but it's not. It's you who are deciding to be this certain way. And then there's another part of you that's saying like, hey, I'm not really sure I would like to be this way anymore. And there's this awareness, this gap. But we call it triggered because then it places all this on somebody else or something else. Something triggered me. The trigger is the whole, it's the revelation of this. And in that moment is your choice. If we can get out or project our awareness out of the body, which I know is possible, practical astral. Oh, I didn't really read a question there. So there's what's it called? The CIA documents. I always forget. It's always right on my mind, but there's Gateway, the Gateway process by and Robert Monroe was somebody who has a book. I believe he had an institute. I'm not sure if it's still existing right now, but the Robert Monroe Institute, they practiced astral projection, and then the CIA, he helped them, and there's a paper on the Gateway process, and they actually talk about reality and how it's constructed in that paper. I'm going to be dissecting that paper this month, actually, in my community and probably live on my channel as well. I've read it twice so far. Is entering a new reality like being born again, baptized? Well, that's what I was talking about when I started this whole thing, is the cycles, the seasons that we go through every single year, right? We've got spring, summer, fall, winter, birth, life, older years of life, death, rebirth, and that's what we go through. And so going into realities, yes, it's a constant cycle of this is new. Okay, I'm getting used to this. This is getting old. This is dying. I move on. It's a constant cycle. And yes, rebirth is the most traumatic part of life. That's what the souls that have allowed their message to come through this reality say, that birth is much more of a shock and a trauma than death is. All right, people talking about astral projection, the Gateway process. So if you do have questions on this, read into it. There's also a book called Dream Yoga that goes through the steps. First you go into Yoga Nidra, which is kind of like dream yoga, and then you actually start learning to bring your consciousness into your dreams so you are lucid, and then you start doing practices while you are dreaming, and then you start to be aware. And then there's another book, I think it's called Reality Transurfing. The author is like an Asian name, from what I remember. And that's about how to surf through realities. Do you think the Akashic records are real? What is real? What is reality? If it's real, if we do not believe, if we do not think, if we're not accepting it as real, then it's not real to us. MonroeInstitute.org. Somebody commented, the process is straightforward, it needs to be practiced. Exactly. These processes are very simple. Just like exercise is simple. Does everybody exercise? No. Less than 1% of the people do. So we can practice a lot of this other stuff as well. So since we're talking about realities, is this the platform to talk about intention? I guess the name of the show is Raw Reality, right? Okay, so this is how I think about reality. And this is based on the science and the experiences that I've either read about or had in my life. So if we take the concept that time does not exist linearly as we perceive it, and that time is existing now. It's all existing now. then we can imagine reality as a series of slides that are all existing. So your childhood is existing somewhere else, but it's just not here in this physical reality, but it's somewhere. And your future self is also existing somewhere. And your consciousness, remember we talked about the focus. Your consciousness is traveling through all of these slides so that we have the illusion of linear time, right? We have the ability to move through physical space, and we feel like we're moving through linear time, where I was just moving, 5 seconds ago. But that, when I was doing this, that's still existing now somewhere else. So we're moving through time, and every slice, so that clap is a slide, and it's a slice of reality that's still existing. And every slice of reality has its own projected past and future, which aren't really existing because they exist as potential. But the one that we actually went through is the one where I clapped. However, I could have just as easily snapped with 2 hands or with 1 hand. Those potentials also exist. But here and now in this reality, they don't exist. They exist somewhere else. I shouldn't say they don't exist. They exist somewhere else as a potential. Now, we know that the past can be changed by the Mandela effect, right? The Mandela effect is this effect where the past changes. So the past in this reality is different than the reality that I grew up in 30 years ago, that my consciousness traveled through. So my consciousness traveled through a reality. This reality that I'm in right now is not connected so much to that reality that my consciousness came through. So this reality has a different past than the reality that I came from. And we know this from the Mandela effect. Darth Vader did not say, "Luke, I am your father," in this reality. However, the reality I came from, he did. Okay? Oscar Mayer Wiener, that entire family, that's what it was called in the reality I came from. In this reality, it's called, that whole family name is Mayer, Oscar Mayer Wiener. The Ford symbol looked different in the reality that I came from. The Ford symbol in this reality has a little curly Q at the bottom part of the F. I grew up in Michigan. Michigan's where Ford is. And I had Fords. My father was a Ford guy. I know what the Ford logo looked like. It's not just a shift in my memory. I could go on. There's like hundreds of examples of this. Field of Dreams. The reality I came from, if you build it, they will come. This reality, the way the movie was made, is if you build it, he will come. So why is it? So remember the movie Back to the Future? So in Back to the Future, they had pictures. And that was the way that we could tell that we were that the past changed, because the picture would change in this current reality. You'd have to be like 35, 40 years old at least to get that example. But in this reality, the only way that we could tell the past would change is if our pictures, our recordings are different. And that's what I'm talking about. Movies are different. The things that are recorded, I can tell are different from, I can contrast the difference of where I came from. So that tells me the way that I live is that the past now is different than the past I came from. That means that all of my attachments, all my programmings don't necessarily need to come with me. That also means that the future is negotiable. It means that I can have some sort of steering of the past and the future from this present moment. From this present moment is the foundation that the rocket ship takes off from, that allows me to go to a reality with this knowledge of my choosing. Now, that concept of my choosing, right? What is actually choosing this, right? Because I think it's me, this meat suit, but I know that there's something else giving me this awareness that allows me choice, manipulation of where the reality that my consciousness goes to. So now when I think about desire, so want is to lack. That's what the word want means. So when we want something, it means that we are recognizing that we lack it. I want a new car. It's a recognition that I do not have it, and harmonizing with that want means that you will forever lack it. You will forever not have it. Desire is completely different word. It's a completely different state of being. Desire is from the word, from the root of that is desidere, which means from the stars. So when you feel, desire is more of a feeling, right? Like, oh, I desire that. You actually get downloaded a feeling. And so I try, this is a practice, I try not to pay attention to the wants, to the recognition of lack. But I do certainly put a lot of energy into the desires. When something just overtakes me and I feel that desire, I know that that's a connection to a reality that is existing in potential. It's existing. I'm connecting to that. And I find that connection and I grab onto it. And that's what intention is. So out of the infinite potential realities that I could be traveling towards, I am now in tension with one of them. One of those slides, I'm in tension because I felt it. I felt it. I feel the connection. And maybe there's many of them that are happening, but there's a choice. Choice is a strong word, but there's something similar to the word choice. There's an acceptance. There's a grasping onto it. And that grasping onto me feels like trust, faith. And I feel it here. And I'm now in tension with that reality. And that tension guides me. It guides my thoughts, it guides my emotions, it guides my actions. And that's what I use to manifest and steer through the infinite potentials of reality. And so some main points is accepting that we're not traveling in one reality through time. Okay? So accepting that we're not traveling in one reality through time, that we are traveling through infinite realities, and we're moving through the infinite realities to give us the perception of time. And that means that there's infinite potential in front of me, right? My consciousness can steer through this. That's number one. Number two is, in order for this to work for me, I found, is the acceptance that the past is also not secured to us. We are not carrying our past with us. The past does not determine our future, and that the present moment is the foundation. So we're not carrying the past and then that's leading the trajectory forward. That the present moment is always a constantly new foundation for where we want to go, which gives us the ability to steer. And then also recognizing the difference between want and desire. Recognizing that want is a recognition of lack, and that desire is from the stars, as the word suggests, desidere, and it's an attachment, it's a connection to a reality where I actually have the thing. The new state of being, the new environment, a new location on the planet, a new car, new relationship, all of that stuff comes through me and I feel it beforehand. And the heart knows this. The heart, there's studies where the heart can sense things that happen in the future. There's random, I don't need to go into that, but that's my foundation of how I steer through reality. And then the question is like, well, why aren't you a billionaire? Well, because I haven't connected with the trust, the faith, the vision to that reality. That's just not where I am. That's not who I am now. And I have complete acceptance that the reality I constructed around myself is me. It is my choice. It is my manifestation. It is my creation. And from that foundation, from that gnosis, I move forward. I'm also completely open to accepting that all of what I just said may or may not be true. It might just be all just a random act of particles hitting each other, and that's life. Are we filling the reality of others? I mean, this is another question, right? What are other people? Who are these other people? How I think about these other people, like I think about them like leaves on a tree. Right? So a leaf has its own life cycle. It has its own defense mechanisms. It has its own duties. And it gets birthed, it lives, it dies. And it's all connected to a tree, which is connected to the earth. And just like we have cells in our body, it's the same thing. They're just like leaves. They have life cycles, they have duties, they have desires. They also have an ability to pray, right? If something's going wrong, they send up a signal to the grander consciousness, which is us. And then we might feel that pain, and then we may change our behavior so that that pain, that signal that came up, gets answered. And that cell also lives and it dies and it competes just like we do. So I look at our self as a cell of, just like the cell inside of us doesn't necessarily have conscious awareness of this self, I look at things as a holograph. One part is just like the whole. And so me living this way, I'm an aspect of something greater. And all the others around me are as well. So our relationship to others, if we can relate to them as self, then we get granted the ability to interact with other selves. When I recognized in my life is when I stopped looking down at other people. Like, I'm fit. I used to own gyms, so every single room I walked into 10, 15 years ago, I was the fittest person in the room. Everybody was eating garbage. 90% of the population doesn't read books. So there's like all of these reasons to make it apparent and to justify why they're not like me. They're not interested in the things that I'm interested in. They wouldn't understand me. They're not worth my attention. We're not going to jive. When I started looking at other people as myself and not as these other people that are different from me, I started recognizing the beauty and the harmony and the intelligence and the genius of everybody. Like everybody. The mailman would come and we would have a half-hour conversation about like all of the stuff that I'm interested in, right? The cashier, the people that I meet, like they all come to me in absolute beauty and perfection. And knowing that every person that's standing in front of you is there for a reason. They must be super important. Either you're super important to their journey or they're super important to your journey, because otherwise they wouldn't be there. Every single aspect of our life has that much necessity for our life, that it's happening. And so going from that within people to then expanding that into the experiences that we're experiencing, Every single experience is happening for me, with me, as me. The experience is me. I'm not within the experience, I am the experience. Nature, the food, everything that's coming in through me, the air. Am I able to perceive myself as the air? Can I expand my sensation of self from here to there? Even if it's just a practice, do I get anything out of it? Can I integrate any of that into the agenda of my limited self? Trauma bond. Trauma bonds. Questions on trauma bonds. I talked a lot about letting go in the beginning part. So find the recording on this when you like to get more answer. But essentially you are choosing that bond just as much as the other person is choosing you. And so we need this. We needed it at a certain point of our life. And so recognizing that the things that, so if we have a desire to be something else, then first we need to recognize how we created the current situation, right? So we cannot create something else if we don't accept responsibility that we created not. Like, we can't just be like, okay, now I'm ready to create, but I didn't create that past, that was somebody else. They were imposing their will against me. It doesn't work that way. If that's your paradigm, that other people are imposing their will against you, and that's what you're attaching to, and you think you're going to move forward in a way that's empowered, that you are the one that is creating, it doesn't work that way. You must first accept that you created them. You created the relationship with them. You accepted that. You craved it. It filled you up. Find that. Find your answer in there. Can you accept that? Do the work to figure that out. Because when you realize, when you accept, when you recognize your power to create that, then that grants you the skill, the power to choose something else. But you cannot move forward thinking that somebody else did something to you. I'm not saying that whoever asked the question is doing that. I'm just saying in general, the easiest way forward is to create. The easiest way to create, I shouldn't even say the easiest way. The only way to create is to recognize that you're a creator. You must recognize you're a creator, which means you created everything in your life. Go back to the worst moments in your life. That is for you. You created that for you. Maybe it was to make you stronger. Maybe it was to teach you a lesson so that you didn't go down that road again. If there was a point in your life where you lost all of your money, like I have many times, I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a year, like one time was actually two different times. One time was $100,000 in a year of my life. Another time was $200,000 in about a year of my life. That is for me. So that I take that experience with me so that, I don't know. I mean, I can just assume that is so I don't lose more money in the future, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a lesson that I get to integrate into a stranger 80 years from now, or maybe a grandchild 40 years from now. That year of my life gets said in one sentence that then changes the trajectory of somebody else. I don't know when I'm going to be paid back for that, but just knowing that that was created by me for me, that's the payment. That's the power. That's me holding my power within the situation. All right, so I wanted somebody else to tell me what my values were. I wanted somebody else to do critical thinking. We're still using the word want, right? So translate that sentence. If want means to lack, so I lacked somebody else telling me what my values were. So that means that you actually craved, yeah. So can we tell ourselves what the values are so we don't have this lack anymore? I think that everyone starts with emotional vacuums but can get better or worse depending on choices as well as their environment. Yeah, we all are magnets. We attract. Burning fingers when I touch my iPhone. How can I stop it? What is it? I get the same thing. I'm now carrying around a little tripod like as I hold my phone. I went and bought a roller mouse so that I'm not using like the new, like the Apple Magic Mouse, cordless. That thing's releasing a lot of EMF. I also turn my EMF off at night. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we're changing and we're unable to adapt with the old technology. I'm not really sure, but it's definitely happening to me. Especially the last 6 months has gotten crazy. It's like I'm getting electrocuted. I'm quitting vaping nicotine and would like a breath exercise I can use to get through the withdrawal phase. We do something in Kundalini for addiction. We put our thumbs on where the tendon of if we clench our back molars, there's this tendon that flexes up here. If you crunch. So if you take an inhale, just hold it for a little bit, just let it be comfortable, and then clench, light clenches just so you feel this bulge in your thumb. And then exhale. And do that for 11 minutes. There's more to that Kriya, but you could look up Kriya for addiction and then see the directions on that. You will be paid back in so many bigger ways than you can't even imagine until the future proves it to you. How do I convince my friend that he too is marrying somebody who is trauma bonded and is actually covert, maybe, narcissistic? I mean, if you're trying to convince somebody, right there, that seems like not the right thing to do. So, first of all, being in a conversation with somebody who's asking you questions is a lot easier than trying to convince somebody who's just going along their way, because they're not willing to listen to you. So, the easiest way to get somebody to accept your influence is to have them voice the problems that you see. So rather than you telling them their problems, hey, don't you see this and that and this and that? That's just bouncing off them because they've got their own paradigm of what it is and what's important to them. But if you can get to the point in a conversation where they are voicing out what you're wanting. So I don't know the exact situation, but let's say if I'm just going to use an example from my world, because I come from the gym business and I also now sell superfoods and train people to sell superfoods. But if we are in a conversation with somebody, us telling them that they're overweight does not make them want to change it. We need them to recognize that they're overweight. So we ask them questions. What's your height and weight? They say it. They haven't said that in a long time. It could be 10 years since anybody's even thought, like the words coming out. They have to formulate it, feel it, then say it. That thought has come out. And then we say, okay, what's your ideal weight? Another thing that they probably never thought about in their life. Oh, wow, I just said what I actually weigh right now, and my ideal weight is 40 pounds under what I weigh right now. Now they have a recognition. They have a contrast that they've developed. You didn't tell them. They developed it. Now you can say something like, you can ask them a question. So you asked them what their height and weight was, what their ideal weight is. Now you can ask them, what happened between, or when was the last time you weighed your ideal weight? That's the question. When was the last time you weighed your ideal weight? Again, right? So you can translate this into your conversations to influence somebody for their own good. Use this for their own good. Because if you rape reality, you're raping yourself. Back to that whole sensation of self, recognizing others as self. If you rape other people, you're raping yourself. So this is just influence, all right? Rather than telling somebody, you have to have them recognize through their own words, through their own imagination, that there is potentially a problem that you'd like them to be aware of, and that you also have a solution for it. So just telling them the solution before they admit the problem doesn't work. So the question was, how do I convince my friend to XYZ? So now that you've asked what their ideal weight was, asked what their ideal situation is, made them aware through their own words that there's a space between that, then you ask them, how long has it been since the ideal situation has been there? You know, when was the last time you weighed that in a weight loss situation? Now they're going to formulate, oh, it's been 7 years. Then you're going to ask the question, what happened between then and now? Now they go in and they formulate, they imagine, they think, they feel all of the steps that led them to now. And in your friend's circumstances, this is gonna take creativity to get this conversation. I'm giving you a simple example as a framework. What happened between then and now? Now they're gonna give you the story. Oh, I went through this, and I went through that, and I went through this. It's been 7 years. What happens in your life? What changes in your life if 90 days from now you are at your ideal weight? So now you set a vision of a potential future. This is back to my whole creating reality things. People need vision to get there. What happens, like what changes in your life if 90 days from now you wake up and you weigh that ideal weight? So now they've got the contrast of the 7 years that got them to where they are. What about if I could basically time travel back and get to that ideal weight? Now they tell you what solving the problem that they just discovered means to them. This is going to change. 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 Now they're open to a solution because they have felt the pain, and they have seen what could happen as a solution. Now somebody's open. Tell me. What can you do? Like now they're ready. And you can then make a suggestion. You can then let them know how you have, this is of course back to my sales training, how I can guarantee that that'll happen for them. And that's essentially like a sales 101 training. Don't tell people the problem you're going to solve with your product or service. You need them to recognize that they have a problem. You need them to recognize what the solution is. You need them to recognize that they've dealt with the problem and the pain and the suffering of it for many, many years. And then now they're open to a solution. They're open to a bridge between their current problem to the ideal solution. Then there's a whole bunch of other things in there as well. Like how they're thinking, how likely am I to succeed? They're thinking, how much does this cost? They're thinking, how much time is this going to take? How much effort is this going to take? All of those things are also things that you, as the guide, get to help maneuver. And people are only going to make a change. They're only going to make a purchase if it's worth it for them. If the outcome seems like they're going to achieve it and that the outcome is worth more than the money that it costs. And in the end, we're helping people manifest. Oh yeah, with the mantra Satanama. Satanama. My bad, I forgot that part. I knew I was forgetting something very important. I couldn't remember the breath or the chant, but mentally, for the addiction meditation, you're chanting Satanama, and Satanama is birth, life, death, rebirth. So you're going through this cycle of self. I want to say this. All right. Okay. Where is my one true love? Timing on my part would be perfect right now. Are you loving yourself? Are you loving yourself? Are you living as if? Because if you're living in lack, if you're waiting to feel what you think would come to you if you have that true love, then you're not the perfect match for that true love person. The perfect match to that true love person is going to come when you are already at that level. So being at that level now allows for that reality to harmonize with you. We need to let others make their own mistakes. Sometimes, all right. So one of the things you learn if you start getting into magic, mysticism, shifting reality, healing, even though we're not supposed to ever say that word, healing people like a metaphysical healer type, is that people's lessons are for them. And if we try to erase them, then we're doing them a disservice, and that actually can bring negative karma onto us. So this is why, like, if you go to a psychic, they're not just going to start telling you all of this stuff. They're not going to be like, this needs to change and that needs to change and you need to do this. They're going to wait for you to ask them about something specific, and then they will address that specific thing, because it's going against your own free will if they just start rattling off the things that they can perceive. You need to be in a point where you are desiring a shift or a change about something, or you need help figuring something out, and you are asking it. So when it comes to our friends and family, it's better for us and them if we are trying not to control and manipulate their life based on our perspective, because our perspective is also limited. So what we think is best for somebody else may or may not be, right? And so if we're forcing them and we're trying to convince, which is the word that they use in this question, trying to convince other people too much, then we're doing them a disservice. And as I said, if you rape reality, you're raping yourself. So try to be mindful about how we interact with other people, and are we overriding their own right to to their free will, because ultimately that's a major law of the universe, is the law of free will. And even the elites on this planet don't go against that. They let us know that they're doing all of this stuff to us before they do it. They get our consent. We consent to it. We watch the movies that they make. We get entertained. We accept the war, the rape, the zombies, the pandemics. We accept all of that into our being before it actually happens. So we are in alignment with it first. When you cut your hair, can I have it? Experience with tuning forks, not so much for me to comment on. Partner of 10 years won't do the work. More internal shifts on my part, or it is the end. Tough to know the difference. So it's funny. I was with a teacher of 50 years, in one of my yoga teacher trainings, in my Kundalini yoga teacher trainings, and there was a student that said, had a question about like, how come my husband isn't doing this stuff, isn't doing the work, and that upsets me. And the teacher's response was, well, he's beneficial in other ways, right? And he said, we all wish our partners to be like us, but there's a reason that they're different. Number one, we're attracted to the opposite of us. So it's likely, I'm sprinkling some of my stuff in here too now. It's likely we're always going to be attracted. This isn't what he said, but my take on this is we're always going to be attracted sexually, like that fire. We're going to be like magnetically attracted to those that are different to us, which means that the partners that we end up with that are the most fulfilling, there's going to be massive differences in our personalities. And that's a function of reality here. For whatever reason, reality and polarity works in a way that opposites attract. So we end up in relationships that we are literally like the polar opposites of people on many different aspects. But this is what he said. He said, not everybody who's like you, going through the journey like you are right now, would make an ideal husband. He said, number one, and then he started going, and this is, he basically said, like, would you really want to be with like a yoga hippie? Is basically what he said. He's like, your husband, he's in his program, and that program's serving you, and you're serving him. And so be the part of the relationship that is aware in the way that you're aware, and he's going to be the part of the relationship that's aware in the way that he's aware. He feels things are important, so that's where his focus is on, even if it's just going to work and coming home and watching TV. That's his service to you. And we sometimes it's really easy to say somebody's not like me, so they're not good enough. But this woman gets to be at a yoga studio at Wednesday at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. That means she's not working. Does she really want to be with somebody else who's not working? So like that's where recognizing that it's okay that others are on their journey and they're serving a critical part of all of our experiences just the way that they are. Lots of people talking about watching other people suffer and how it's so hard to do. This may be a personal question, Rob, but have you ever had your body sick in your journey this far? Yeah, but the way that people think about sicknesses is that it's like a bad thing. So just to answer your question, truthfully, the last time that I did this fill in for Gary was like a month ago. That was the first time I'd been what we call sick in like, as far as I can remember. The time before that, I had ammonia because I was competing every weekend and I was overtraining, and that was like 2012. So it'd been like 10 years since I've had like any sort of illness. But for me, I went through it like it was like a 3-week thing. And if you look at the last live I did, my eyes are, it actually is one of the posts that they just reposted me where I'm talking of hair. That was the first time I talked in like 2 weeks. I was coughing my lungs out the night before. I wasn't sure how I was going to get through it. But I went through that just knowing that there was some sort of adjustment happening within my body. And it was just time for me to be in bed and maybe reflect. And also it's the middle of winter time, so maybe there's things in my body that needed to adjust. So we don't need to think that life is perfect for those that, like, if life isn't perfect for us, like if we do get ill or in bed with a headache, we don't necessarily have to have shame or guilt associated with that. It's just what your body needs. It needs it now. And so this awareness that we're creating everything also applies to when we're in the dumps, when if life is doing this, we're creators here. Yeah, we can celebrate our wins, but we're also creators here. And we're creating the need to be in bed all day for whatever reason. Can you explain why I have seen a hologram with information that took place hours later? I've been noticing that deja vu effect a lot. Like a lot. It's almost, actually it's been in that same, like the EMF thing with the burning hands, it's been the last 6 months. I'm getting this like, whoa, I have very real, tangible sensation that like I remember this before, and some of it's like it was like memories and things, that daydreams that I had long time ago, but I remember having them and then I'm experiencing them now. So it's like recently it's been happening a lot, but you're saying it's happening and then it's happening hours later. I mean, I think it goes back into how I structured reality and how we get bleed through. There's bleed through from other realities that connect to us in the here and now. Also, the other person could say the same about us. Yeah. What's your IG handle? It's raw_of_earth. Oh, Lisa got me on that. All right, just going through the last bit of questions. Deja vu is a sign that you were on the right path. That's what I was told by my intuitive counselor. Thank you for that. I'm getting a lot of deja vu too. Me too. I've been feeling what I call a flash forward, like a glimpse of what's coming. Right. And that makes sense if all realities are existing now. And I think about reality as a potential, like the potential futures, and our consciousness goes through it. Maybe other versions of our consciousness goes into other things that manifest physical realities. But I think about reality as a potential, and all potential exists. There's a potential where I have even 3 arms, and it's happening now as a potential. So it's like our computer screen has the potential of the entire internet, but it's not existing on our computer screen somewhere else. It's just a potential. I navigate through the internet and I pull up on my screen onto reality, the slide of reality where I navigate to as a potential. And that all gets created based on me being the user navigating what gets popped up onto my screen. So if this is the screen of reality, we are the users that are manifesting, creating the slides. I've been meeting new people who I 100% know I've met before. I even know what they're going to say next. Me as well. So I haven't necessarily been meeting new people like that, but I've been meeting people that are literally like clones of like best friends that I've had in the past. And it's funny. it's just weird, and it's funny. And that word weird, look up the etymology of it. It means fate or personal destiny. So when we say things are weird and we're like, oh, weird is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean odd. Weird actually means fate or personal destiny. It literally means this is how it's supposed to be. So a recognition of weirdness is a recognition of like truth, of beingness, of wow. It's like wow. It's like highlighting wow. This is crazy. This crazy could be a word, but weird is. Do you have any tips on protecting myself from others' negative energy? I have become extra sensitive, and it's making my relationship difficult as I end up low and exhausting. Yeah. So, recognize that you're a toroid and your heart's emanating out a field, and that this field is spinning and coming up and then back in through your root. So it's like an apple, right? So imagine your heart as the center of the apple, and that the apple shape is around you, and strengthen that. Use your imagination to strengthen that field, and then others will not come in and interrupt your field, and you can maintain your sense of harmony, of self, of whatever you are choosing to be amongst others. This is like back to like trying to shield ourselves from others, and then eventually you may be able to interact with others and communicate and transmit through your own harmony, recognizing their own harmony and their own right to exist within this reality. But we all need to go in steps and stages. So first, if you are trying to block out others, then like build this toroid around you. I'm just reading some questions. What do you think about CERN and the ability to manipulate time? I mean, that might be a reason for the Mandela effect. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into it too much. Is it possible to lose 300 pounds? Yeah, we've helped people do that. We've definitely helped people do that. There's a reason why somebody's 300 pounds overweight. And so we have to, basically diet comes down to three simple things: nourish, detoxify, repair. So however you're eating, your diet needs to be functional. So functionally nourish the cells. Your diet needs to facilitate detox. It needs to facilitate a way to get the poison and the built up toxins out of the body, and it also needs to facilitate repair. Nourish, detoxify, repair. So we need a functional diet, one that's able to do that. We do that with a specific program, but however you're eating, make sure that that's happening, because if you're just nourishing, but the accumulation of poisons in your body isn't coming out, then you're not going to be healthy. Or if you're just focused on detox, but there's no focus on repair or nourishment, same thing. A lot of times the body's going to do its own magic, right? We just have to make sure that the diet that we're eating is functional. It's not working against our body. I've noticed that I've dreamed of deja vus I've had. Yeah, that's where like this whole, it's like everything's getting tangled together. And so like the deja vus are actually happening in reality, in our dreams, in our memories, in our feelings. It's like this like sensation that it's like we're reaching out into what hasn't happened yet. And it's like we're grasping onto the ability. And so it's like not quite in our grasp. It's like learning a new skill, like riding a bike or riding a unicycle, where you're like, everybody should try to ride a unicycle. Learn new skills, because then you understand this concept of like, okay, I fell, and you start to gain the strength. You start to gain the awareness of how to balance on a unicycle. Because you know how to balance on a bike. You don't have to fall this way or this way. But a unicycle, you also fall this way and this way. And all the in-between. So you have to learn and pedal at the same time. Because there's no coasting on a unicycle. On a bike, you can coast. On a unicycle, the pedals are attached to the wheel. So you get this like grasp that you can barely grasp onto of balance. And after like a few hundred tries, you now can grasp onto the skill of riding a unicycle. Then you can start riding straight, then turning, then stopping, then riding backwards. And it's all like being able to grasp onto the skill. So I feel like this deja vu, being able to sense the future, is one of those things that we're all it's just grazing the tips of our fingers. We're not yet ready to grasp it, but it's a skill that we can acquire. I've always been called weird, and I've loved to learn it, embrace it, and embody it. Exactly. Me too. Any color to visualize it from the heart? Yes. And people are giving comments on that: blue, purple, indigo. I feel like that's something that you should see in your own imagination. Lisa said, I've lost 100 pounds with the Human Garage program. Yes. Congrats, Lisa. So it's possible. Guys, anything's possible. It's just choosing it and then creating it. Okay. I am signing off. Thank you, everybody, for the conversation. And this will be the end. Bye-bye. Raw_of_earth if you're looking to see more of me. And I also talk with Gary every Wednesdays. And Gary's a machine, and he's on every single day. Right now, he's just on his way back to Cancun. So I'm sure he'll be back on. I'm sure someone will be back on maybe later on today. Bye, everybody.